The sun wasn't even up yet, but Zanele was already awake. She didn't need an alarm. Hunger did that job every morning. Her stomach made small noises, like it was crying for help, but she ignored it, like always. Quietly, she folded the one blanket she shared with her mother and tiptoed out of the room, careful not to wake her. From the other side of the curtain, her mother coughed, a dry, painful cough that sounded like it hurt her chest. "Zanele, water," her mother whispered. Zanele rushed to the metal jug. Empty. She picked it up and stepped outside, walking down the narrow path to the hand pump. As she pumped water into the jug, her eyes looked at the houses around, big ones with gates, dogs, and shining cars. But no one knew her name. No one ever looked twice. She came back, helped her mother sip the water. Her mother smiled faintly, her lips cracked. "You going to school?" Zanele nodded. Her mother looked sad. "No breakfast today again, huh?" Zanele lied softly. "It's okay, Mama. I'm not hungry." She pulled on her school uniform. It had faded color and a tear near the sleeve. Her shoes were nearly useless now. The soles were open at the front. Still, she wore them with quiet pride. Her mother once told her, even poor people can walk with dignity. On the road, as she passed a puddle, a car rushed past and splashed dirty water on her skirt. Inside was a girl from her class, smiling, laughing, not even looking. Zanele didn't say a word. She just turned her face away and kept walking. At school, lunchtime came. Kids opened their tiffin boxes, biryani, fruit, chocolates. Zanele slipped into the bathroom and sat on the floor, pretending to wait for someone. No lunch, not even a biscuit. That's when she heard them. "Did you hear? Prize money for the talent show is $50,000. "Yeah, but only if you win. They'll probably give it to someone rich again." Her ears perked up. Talent show? Prize money? Her heart started beating faster. She didn't eat. She didn't even breathe loudly. But in her head, a quiet voice spoke. "Maybe singing can help Mama." She didn't notice that she'd started humming, softly, the song she always sang to herself while doing chores. And that's when it happened. A voice behind her. "Was that you singing?" She turned around fast. It was one of the teachers, eyes wide with surprise. The teacher stepped closer. "Come with me, child, right now." The teacher's voice was firm but gentle. Zanele followed her through the school corridor, unsure what was happening. Her heart beat faster with every step. They reached the empty music room. The teacher pointed to the old wooden chair near the front. "Sit," she said. Zanele sat, hands in her lap, eyes lowered. The teacher stood by the piano. "I heard something. Was it you singing in the bathroom?" Zanele swallowed. "I was just humming." "That wasn't just humming, dear. That was music." Silence stretched between them. Then the teacher asked softly, "Can you sing that again?" Zanele looked down at her torn shoes. Her voice had always been a private thing, just for Mama, just for pain. But something inside her said, "Try." She opened her mouth just a little. The sound came out soft, almost shaking. But it floated in the air like a feather, a line from the old lullaby her mother used to sing when Zanele was small. The teacher didn't move. Her eyes watered. "Again," she whispered. "Please sing it again." This time Zanele sang a full verse. Her voice, though not trained, carried something stronger than skill. It carried hunger, grief, need, love. When she finished, the room was quiet. The teacher clapped slowly, wiping her eyes. "You have no idea what you just did," she said. Zanele looked confused. I just sing for Mama." The teacher knelt beside her. "There's a talent show this month. Grand prize is $50,000. That could help you both, couldn't it?" Zanele's eyes widened. "50,000? The teacher nodded. "And you can win it, but only if you try." Zanele shook her head. "I can't. I don't have a dress. I don't even have money to enter." The teacher smiled. "Don't worry about that. I'll take care of it. You just keep singing." Zanele's lips formed a small smile, the first in many days. At home that evening, her mother asked gently, "Why are you smiling like that?" Zanele looked at her, eyes glowing, but she didn't tell the truth. "Just a good day at school, Mama." She laid beside her mother and hummed again, only this time, stronger. That night, when Zanele opened the drawer to hide her school books, she found a new letter from the hospital. Final warning, pay within 7 days or treatment will stop. Her smile disappeared. Zanele sat under the weak bulb, the letter from the hospital shaking in her hand. Final warning, her mother needed medicine. She needed a doctor. But all they had was an empty jar of coins. She took the flyer for the talent show out of her bag and stared at it. Prize $50,000, it said in big letters. It felt like it belonged to another world, a world where people wore new clothes, sang on real stages, and had someone in the crowd clapping for them. She whispered to herself, "What if I really win?" She looked at her mother sleeping on the mattress, her face pale, her breath heavy. Zanele felt something heavy in her chest, not fear, something else, pressure, like the weight of the whole world was sitting on her shoulders. The next morning, the teacher met her behind the school's old storeroom. In her hands, she carried a folded piece of cloth. "It's not new," the teacher said gently, "but I wore this the first time I sang on stage. Maybe it can help you too." Zanele unfolded it. A dress, slightly old, slightly faded, but beautiful in its own quiet way. Tears welled in Zanele's eyes. "Thank you, miss. I never had something like this before." But good things never came easy. By lunch, the whispers had started. The rich girls saw the dress and laughed behind her back. "Look at charity case Zanele. Thinks she can win with garbage." Zanele stood by the small window, heart pounding. The voices outside faded into the distance, but their words stayed behind like a shadow in her mind. Her father. Someone big? She lay next to her mother that night, but sleep didn't come. Her eyes stared at the ceiling. Questions circled her like flies. Who was he? Where was he? Why had he never come? The next morning before school, she opened the old trunk at the foot of her mother's bed. It held worn clothes, yellowed books, and a small leather notebook, her mother's old diary. She turned the pages slowly, carefully. Most of it was faded, but one page had fresh ink, like it had been written later than the rest. A single name stood out, Chibuzo. Nothing else. No last name. No note. Just that. At school, the thoughts refused to leave her alone. She stared at her notebook but couldn't read. Even the sound of laughter from across the class felt far away. Finally, during break, she approached one of the boys who'd been talking in the alley. "What did you say yesterday? About my father?" He looked caught, his face twitching. "Nothing. Just stories." "Tell me." He shrugged, pretending not to care. "Some folks say your mom used to be with some big man back in the day, a producer or something, rich type. Then he disappeared." Zanele's heart dropped. "Do you know his name?" He smirked. "Chibuzo something." "Why, you looking for your daddy now?" She turned away, her face burning, but not with shame, with questions that had no answers. That evening, her mother noticed the silence. "You're quiet, Zanele." Zanele sat beside her slowly. "Who is Chibuzo?" Her mother's face changed. The color drained. Her hands froze on the edge of the blanket. "Where did you hear that name?" "I found it in your diary." Her mother's voice shook. "Forget that name. He has nothing to do with us." Zanele whispered, "Was he my father?" Her mother closed her eyes. "He was a mistake. One I paid for." Zanele's throat tightened. "Why did he leave?" Her mother took a long breath, voice dry. "Because I was poor and he was rich. He said I was a problem. He gave me money to go away. That's all we ever were to him." Zanele felt the words like glass in her chest. "So, he didn't want me?" Her mother looked at her with tearful eyes. "He didn't, but I did. I wanted you more than anything in this world." Zanele cried silently as her mother held her. That night, she didn't practice. She just sat at the window, whispering the name like a stranger's. Chibuzo. Next morning, the school bulletin board listed the final judges for the show. Her eyes froze on the last name. Kwame, celebrity music judge. Zanele stood in front of the school's bulletin board, her eyes locked on the name, Kwame. Her mouth was dry, her heartbeat thudded in her ears. She didn't blink, just stared. That name, it couldn't be a mistake. Chibuzo. That was the name in her mother's notebook. The man she was told to forget. the man who never wanted her, and now he would be sitting in the front row, judging her, without even knowing who she was. At first, she felt dizzy, like the ground under her feet was gone. She backed away from the board, almost bumping into a teacher. Everything around her blurred. By lunch, the whole school was talking about the celebrity judge. Students were excited. Some were panicking about what to wear. Some were bragging about the songs they would sing. Zanele sat alone in the corner of the schoolyard, the old second-hand dress folded neatly beside her. She touched the fabric like it could give her answers. After school, she walked home slowly. Every step was heavy. When she got there, her mother was sitting up for once, holding her cup of tea. She looked tired but peaceful. "Mama," Zanele said gently, "his full name is Kwame, isn't it?" Her mother looked up fast. The cup in her hand rattled. "Yes," she whispered. "That's him." Zanele sat down beside her. "He's going to be at the show." Her mother's face froze. "You don't need to sing anymore, Zanele." "Leave it." "But why should I leave it? He left us, not the other way around." Tears filled her mother's eyes. "He won't recognize you, and if he does, he'll pretend he doesn't." "I don't care if he sees me or not," Zanele said, her voice flat but strong. "I want him to hear me." Her mother reached for her hand. "Baby, don't do this for revenge." "I'm not. I'm doing it because he tried to erase us. But I'm still here." Her mother closed her eyes. "You're your own voice now. He can't take that from you." That night, Zanele didn't cry. She took out her songbook. She added a new line, one she had never dared to write before. "For the man who left me invisible." She practiced until her voice cracked. But she didn't stop. Her voice wasn't perfect, but it was real. And now it had something else too. Truth. Zanele looked into the mirror and whispered to her reflection, "I will stand on that stage and make him hear me, even if he never looks up." The next morning, Zanele stood outside the school auditorium, the sign-up sheet clipped to the board. Names were written in bold letters. Some were underlined. Some had little hearts beside them, showing who the favorites were. But Zanele's name wasn't there yet. She stared at the blank line at the bottom. Her hand trembled as she picked up the pen. Slowly she wrote, Zanele Okoro. Her handwriting looked too small, too soft, but it was there. As soon as she turned, a group of students nearby started whispering, "She's actually signing up? In that dress? She doesn't even have decent shoes." Zanele lowered her eyes and walked past them. She didn't reply. She just kept moving forward. During the lunch break, rehearsals were called. Zanele's name was last on the list. Everyone had already gathered, showing off their flashy outfits and polished songs. Some even brought background dancers. She waited at the back, holding her second-hand dress close to her chest. One rich girl from class smirked at her. "Don't worry, they always need someone to go last. Makes it easier for the winner to shine." Zanele bit the inside of her cheek but said nothing. Finally, her name was called. She stepped onto the stage with slow steps. No music, no lights, just her in the big empty space. She took a deep breath. The microphone was too high for her. She adjusted it. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't run. And then she sang. Not loud, not showy, just honest. Her voice wavered at first, but only for a second. Then it found its rhythm, a song about growing up unheard, about singing when no one listens, about standing tall when everything around you pulls you down. One verse, then another. When she finished, no one clapped at first. The room was just quiet. Then someone, maybe a teacher, began clapping slowly. Others followed. Even the students who had mocked her looked unsure now. Backstage, one of the older teachers leaned toward the staff judge panel and whispered, "That girl, someone needs to hear her again. I'm going to call Chibuso now." Zanele stood backstage, pressing her fingers to her lips. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't let a tear fall. She thought, this is only the beginning. If he was watching, I wonder if he felt anything. Elsewhere, Chibuso sat in his luxury car, listening to a voice recording on his phone. It was her. He froze mid-sip of his drink. His hand trembled slightly as he whispered, "Where did this girl come from?" Chibuzo sat in the back seat of his black car, windows tinted, air conditioner humming low. His assistant had just played a short voice recording from the school rehearsal. Zanele's voice. He didn't speak. He just stared out the window, unmoving. "You okay, sir?" his assistant asked, confused by his sudden silence. Chibuzo raised a hand slowly, telling him not to speak. That voice. Something about it stirred something deep inside him. He hadn't heard her name yet, only the voice. It was raw, fragile, but powerful. It reminded him of something or someone. He shut his eyes. A memory returned from years ago. A woman crying in a small room, holding a baby wrapped in an old towel. "Please, just look at her," she had begged, and him turning away, jaw tight, saying words he had never forgiven himself for. "I can't ruin my name for this." Back in the car, Chibuzo clenched his jaw. "Who is this girl?" he asked. His assistant checked the school list. "Just a schoolgirl. Local entry. Name's Zanele. Full name." Zanele Okoro. Chibuzo dropped his water bottle. He leaned forward slowly, staring at the dashboard. Zanele Okoro. The last name, her mother's. Of course. He sat back and covered his face with both hands. A single tear slipped out and dried before it reached his shirt. His voice cracked. "Find out everything. I want her mother's full name, her age, her history. I want to know if this is what I think it is." The assistant hesitated. "Should we involve your lawyer?" "No." Chibuzo shook his head quickly. "No lawyers. No papers. Not yet." He took out his phone and opened a locked gallery folder. There, buried under years of photos, was one single picture. Old, faded, but clear. A young woman. His past. Her smile tired, eyes honest, and in her arms a baby. He zoomed in. Something about the baby's eyes. It was the same. The shape, the sadness, the strength. "I think she's mine," Chibuzo whispered. But he didn't smile. He didn't say it proudly. He said it like a man realizing he once threw away gold and now found the broken pieces. He called someone. A voice answered. "Sir, tell the hospital in District 14 to check if a woman named Okoro is receiving care. If she is, cover her bills." He ended the call and leaned back. "She found me," he whispered. "After all these years, she found me." The day before the talent show finals, the school buzzed with noise and excitement. Students practiced dance moves in the courtyard, tuned guitars in the hallway, and argued about who would win. Zanele arrived early. Her old second-hand dress was neatly folded in her bag. Her teacher had helped her press it. She planned to find a quiet corner and practice her breathing before the final stage. But when she opened her locker, her heart dropped. The bag with the dress, gone. Panic rose in her chest. She checked again. Nothing. She ran down the hall, retracing her steps. She asked two girls standing nearby. One shrugged. "Maybe you misplaced it." The other giggled. "Or maybe it just ran away from shame." Zanele turned, eyes sharp. "What did you say?" The girls didn't reply. They just walked off, laughing louder than needed. She kept searching. Near the back gate, by the garbage bins, she saw a familiar piece of fabric sticking out from behind the wall. She rushed over. Her dress was there, ripped, soaked in dirty water, smeared with something dark. Someone had stomped on it, maybe more than once. Her fingers shook as she picked it up. Her jaw clenched. She didn't cry. She wanted to, but the tears stopped halfway, burned by something hotter. Anger, pain, fire. She walked to the staff room and found her music teacher. The moment the teacher saw Zanele's face and the destroyed dress in her hands, she stood up. "Who did this?" the teacher asked, furious. "I don't know," Zanele whispered. "But it's okay." "No, it's not okay," the teacher said firmly. "You deserve better." Zanele looked down. "I don't want to fight. I just want to sing." That evening, just before the school closed, her teacher returned with a carefully wrapped package. "I wore this when I had nothing," she said softly. "When I was just a girl from a slum with a big voice. I thought I'd never wear it again." Zanele opened the package and gasped quietly. A beautiful dress, worn but full of history and care. "I can't take this," Zanele said. "Yes, you can. You must." Zanele nodded. Her hands stopped shaking. She practiced late into the evening, standing alone on the back steps, humming her song over and over. eyes closed. Her voice didn't shake this time. It rose like it had something to prove, like it had something to burn down. Meanwhile, Chibuso arrived early at the venue and sat quietly at the far corner of the auditorium, wearing sunglasses, watching every rehearsal, waiting for her to appear. The sun was low in the sky when Zanele stood by the mirror, carefully pinning the borrowed dress into place. It didn't fit perfectly, but it held her like armor. Every stitch felt like strength passed down from someone who had once stood where she stood now. Her teacher entered, smiled proudly. "You look like a voice the world can't ignore." Zanele smiled faintly, then turned serious. "Miss, what if he doesn't recognize me? What if he sees me and still pretends not to?" The teacher walked closer and took her hands. "Then you sing louder. You don't sing to be seen. You sing to be heard." Zanele nodded. She tucked her songbook into her bag and left for home. Her steps were slow this time, not from fear but from the weight of what she was carrying. A song, a family secret, 1,000 broken promises. At home, her mother was lying still, wrapped in thin blankets. Her face was pale, her lips cracked. The room felt colder than before. Zanele sat beside her and took her hand. "I'm going to sing now, Mama," she said softly. "You won't be there to hear it, but I know you'll feel it." Her mother opened her eyes slowly. "I'll be listening, baby, from here." Zanele leaned down and kissed her forehead. "If I win, you get medicine, a proper bed, no more pain." Her mother nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek. Zanele wiped it gently, then whispered, "I wrote a new verse, about truth, about never being wanted, but still showing up." Her mother smiled weakly. "That's the girl I raised." The walk to the venue was quiet, alone, no cameras, no fans, just a girl with a voice and a mission. Backstage, the other students stood in glittering outfits, adjusting hair, checking microphones. A few whispered as Zanele passed. "She still came? After everything? Maybe she really thinks she'll win." Zanele ignored them. Her hands were cold, but her heart was burning. She found a corner, closed her eyes, and whispered the first lines to herself like a prayer. The teacher came over and gently fixed her hair. "It's time." Zanele nodded. A staff member called her name from the wings. She stepped forward. As she walked onto the stage, the lights were too bright to see the crowd clearly, but she felt the weight of eyes, including his. Chibuzo leaned forward in his seat, staring. She felt it, and for a moment her legs faltered, but she stood firm. She looked out at the crowd, not to find her father, but to forget him. She held the mic, closed her eyes, took a breath, and just before she opened her mouth, her mind whispered, "This is for Mama, not him." Zanele stood on the stage, her hand gripping the microphone like it was the only thing keeping her standing. Her breath shook, but her eyes stayed closed. The auditorium was silent. Then she began. At first, her voice came out soft, so soft it almost disappeared. But she kept going. Her words were full of weight, every line soaked in memory. She sang about nights without sleep, hunger that knocked like a friend, a mother's hand holding hers when the world had none to give. The room began to shift. Whispers stopped, phones lowered, heads turned. Even the judges who had looked bored before were now sitting forward. Chibuzo? He sat like a statue. His eyes didn't blink, his mouth didn't move. The voice, that voice, it wasn't just talent, it wasn't performance, it was a story. A wound being opened in front of strangers, a message carved out of pain and stitched together with love. Then came the second verse. This one was new. Even her teacher hadn't heard it. "I was born in silence, left outside your name, but I still rose like thunder, and I never came for fame. I came for the mother who cried in the dark. I came for the truth you buried in the dirt like a spark." The audience shifted in their seats. Chibuso leaned back slowly, eyes wide, hand covering his mouth. She didn't name him, but he knew. Every word stabbed at something he'd spent years locking away. And yet, he couldn't stop listening. The final verse came. It was soft again. "I don't need your face. I don't need your name. I found my song without your love, and I'll never sing in shame. When the last note fell, there was nothing but stillness, not a breath, not a sound. Then, like rain breaking a drought, applause, thunderous, honest, some standing. A few students cheered like they'd just seen something they couldn't explain. Zanele opened her eyes, blinking at the crowd, her chest rising and falling like she'd just run a marathon. She didn't smile. She didn't bow. She just stood there, breathing. Backstage, her teacher was wiping her eyes. On the judging panel, one man stood up slowly. Chibuzo. He didn't speak. He just started walking, around the table, toward the stage. Zanele saw him now. Full face, no sunglasses, just eyes that looked like hers. He kept walking until he stood just behind the curtain. And then, without a microphone, he whispered loud enough for her to hear. That voice, it belongs to me. Backstage was a quiet place now. The noise of the crowd felt far away, like it was locked behind thick walls. Zanele stood near the back wall, breathing heavy, her back to the door. Then she heard the steps. Software slow. Careful. She turned. There he was. Kwame. In real life, not just a name in a notebook, not just a shadow in her mother's eyes, a tall man in a sharp suit. But his face looked like it had aged in seconds. There was no pride in it, just something broken. Neither of them spoke at first. Then softly he said, "That was the most honest song I've heard in my life." Zanele didn't reply. He took a step closer. "Where did it come from?" She stared at him. Her voice was small but steady. "From a place you wouldn't understand." "I think I might," he said, barely breathing. "I used to know someone. She had eyes like yours. She used to sing too, before life got too hard." Zanele's chest tightened. She knew who he meant, her mother. Still, she didn't give him the satisfaction of a smile. She didn't ask the question burning her throat. He looked down, then back at her. "What's your name?" he asked gently, like the answer already hurt. "Zanele," she said. "Zanele Okoro." Chibuzo's face twitched, like someone had hit him right in the heart. But still, he held his expression. "That's a beautiful name," he said. "I got it from my mother," she replied. There was a long pause. He nodded slowly. "She must be proud." "She is," Zanele said, "even when she's in pain." The silence between them now was heavy. Chibuzo shifted. "If you ever need anything, I have people. I know people. I don't need help." Zanele cut him off, voice sharp but respectful. "I just needed to sing." He nodded, looking down. She took a step back. "I should go now. My mother's waiting." He looked at her, eyes full of something he didn't know how to say. "Thank you for your voice," he whispered. Zanele turned without another word and walked away. Behind her, Chibuzo stood frozen, as if he had just met a ghost he once ran from. As she disappeared down the hallway, Chibuzo pulled out his phone and made one call, to his lawyer. Find out everything about a woman named Okoro and her daughter Zanele. Quietly, Chibuzo sat alone in his hotel room, lights off, curtains drawn. The city outside sparkled with life, but inside that room, silence filled every corner. His phone buzzed. A message from his lawyer. Confirmed. Zanele Okoro, born 14 years ago. Mother, Adisa Okoro. No father listed on birth certificate. You paid her a settlement in 2010. Full match. Chibuzo didn't move. The phone screen lit up his face, but it couldn't hide the shadows in his eyes. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly, like the air had turned heavy. "She's mine," he whispered. The truth had always been there. He just never wanted to see it. Back then, he'd been rising fast. Music awards, celebrity interviews, invitations to places people like Adisa never saw. He remembered her clearly, her voice, her laughter, her warmth, and her silence. When he gave her the envelope, "I'm not ready," he had told her. "I can't take this on." Adisa hadn't cried then. She had only said one thing before walking away. "She'll grow without you, and she'll never need your name." Back in the hotel room, Chibuzo covered his face with both hands, his fingers curled into fists. That little girl who sang on stage today, she was the song. a voice shaped by all the pain he helped create. He opened a dusty drawer from his bag. Inside, one old photograph, Adisa, holding a baby girl. The same eyes, the same sadness, the same quiet strength. He stood up fast, pacing. This can't be undone, he said to himself. But maybe I can fix something, even if it's small. Just then, the door opened. His wife entered, heels clicking on the floor, her eyes sharp, face unreadable. She looked at the mess on the desk, the open photo, the lawyer email, everything. She narrowed her eyes. Who is she? Chibuzo tried to hide the photo. No one, just a contestant, very talented. His wife stepped closer. Don't lie to me, Chibuzo. I know that face. I saw you stand during her performance. He froze. Is she yours? Silence. Then quietly, yes. His wife's face went cold. After all these years, you let this come back now? He looked down. I didn't plan it. I didn't know. And now what? She snapped. You want to save her? Announce her like some prize? What happens to us? Chibuzo didn't answer. She stepped back, eyes burning. If you go near her, I swear I will destroy everything. I'll bury her, her mother, you, your career, all of it. He sat back down, drained. She's just a girl. Exactly, his wife hissed. One girl against everything we've built. That night, while Chibuzo sat frozen, his wife picked up her phone and made one quiet call to a media friend. Find out everything about that girl, Zanele Okoro, and make sure her story doesn't end with applause. While Zanele slept beside her mother that night, peaceful for once, not knowing the storm waiting, across the city, phones were ringing in luxury homes. Chibuzo's wife stood by her window, arms crossed, watching the city lights below. Her call was answered on the third ring. You still work in media, right? She asked coolly. A voice replied, If it pays, I do. There's a girl. Her name is Zanele Okoro, a contestant in that school talent show. I want dirt on her, her background, her school records, family, everything. Why? The voice asked, curious. She's pretending to be someone she's not, she lied. She's manipulating sympathy. Might even be lying about her mother being sick. So you want her exposed? Number one, I want her disqualified, she said, then humiliated. The voice laughed. That'll cost. I'll pay double, she said. Just do it fast, before the final results come out. She ended the call and looked at her reflection in the glass. She thinks she can walk in and ruin our name with her song? Downstairs, Chibuzo sat at the kitchen table, holding his head. He heard none of it. His guilt had become a rope around his chest. He had called the hospital, paid for everything quietly. He didn't want Zanele or her mother to know. He thought maybe that small gesture could begin to clean what he had ruined. But upstairs, his wife was cleaning something else. His name. The next morning, whispers spread like fire. At school, students shared a link from a blog. Talent show contestant fake story? Sources say she lied about sick mother to win. Zanele walked into school late, holding her mother's medicine prescription in hand. She was about to give it to her teacher when a student shoved a phone in her face. You're trending. What? Zanele read the screen. Her name, her photo, the words liar and sympathy scam. She froze. Other students gathered around. Some smirked. Some just stared. No one spoke up. She dropped the prescription from her hand. Her teacher rushed out of the office and pulled her aside. Zanele, don't look at it. They're just trying to... It's everywhere, miss. I know, but we'll fight it. They said I lied, that my mother isn't even sick. You have proof. No one's asking for proof, Zanele said. They just believe the lie because it's easier. Her face was pale, her voice flat, but her eyes burning. At the end of the day, a school official approached her with a form. Zanele Okoro, you've been disqualified pending investigation. We're sorry. The walk home that day felt longer than usual. Zanele didn't even remember how her feet moved. Her backpack felt like stone, her chest like glass about to crack. She passed her classmates outside the school gate. Some pointed, some whispered, and one even laughed loud enough for her to hear. See what happens when you try too hard to be someone? She didn't answer. She didn't even flinch. At home, her mother sat propped up on pillows, smiling weakly. "You're back early." Zanele dropped her bag on the floor and sat beside her, holding her hand tightly. "They disqualified me, Mama." Her mother blinked. "What? Why?" "They said I lied, that you're not sick, that I made up everything to get sympathy." Her mother's face changed. Pain and confusion spread across it like a slow fire. "That's not true," she whispered. "I know, but no one wants the truth, Mama. Just something to laugh at." Her mother reached out, touched her cheek. "You don't need to prove anything. You sang the truth. Let them throw stones. Your song is still standing." Zanele closed her eyes. One tear slipped out. That night she lay awake. No more rehearsals, no finals, no prize money, no medicine. Just silence. The sound of her mother coughing in the dark. The same wall crumbling again. She sat up suddenly and grabbed the newspaper article with her picture on it. The one calling her a fraud. She stared at it, her face tight, then tore it in half. Then again, and again, until it was just dust in her hands. In the morning, she entered the school through the back gate, trying to avoid the eyes. But it didn't work. A student shoved past her. Another posted something on social media with her photo. From favorite to fake. She walked to the music room and sat in the far corner, head on her knees. Her teacher entered, eyes wide with worry. "Zanele, I should never have tried," she whispered. "I knew I didn't belong in that show. I knew they'd never let a girl like me win." Her teacher sat beside her. "You don't need their permission to be powerful. I wanted to win so I could save her. And you still can. You don't need a prize to sing. You need your voice." Zanele looked up, face hollow. "But they took that too." The teacher reached into her bag and pulled out Zanele's songbook. "I found this in the trash," she said gently. "You must have dropped it." Zanele stared at it for a long moment, then slowly reached out, took it, and pressed it to her chest. Just then, the school principal burst into the room. "Zanele, stop everything. A letter just came in. From the district board." She held out the paper. "You've been reinstated. Someone filed an appeal. You're back in the finals." Zanele sat frozen, staring at the principal's hand holding the letter. The words on it didn't feel real. "Reinstated," she whispered. The principal nodded. "Someone filed an appeal on your behalf, and it was approved. You're back in the show. Finals tomorrow." Zanele looked at her teacher, confused. "Was it you?" The teacher shook her head, just as surprised. But someone fought for you." Zanele clutched the letter to her chest and walked out slowly. The hallway was quiet now. No whispers, no laughter. The world had turned upside down. Again. But this time it felt different. Like the storm hadn't passed, but like she was starting to grow through it. Outside, the sun was dipping low, turning the streets gold. Zanele walked toward the old staircase behind the school, her place of practice, her place of peace. She sat down on the steps and opened her songbook. The pages were crinkled from rain and tears. Some words were smudged, others scratched out. But the heart of the song was still there. She flipped to the last page, the one where she'd written a verse in anger after being disqualified. She tore it out slowly. "I won't sing from pain anymore," she said quietly to herself. "I'll sing from power." That night at home, her mother was struggling to breathe again. Zanele rushed to her side, held her up, gave her water. "I got back in the show, Mama," she said softly. "Finals are tomorrow." Her mother smiled, too weak to speak. "I'll win for you," Zanele said. "But if I don't, I'll still sing for you. That won't ever change." Her mother closed her eyes, her hands squeezing Zanele's once, then resting. Later, Zanele sat by the window, her legs pulled close to her chest. She stared at the stars and whispered to the sky, "You tried to break me. You tried to bury me, but I'm still standing." She opened her notebook and began writing again. A new verse, not about being unwanted, not about being invisible, but about becoming louder than the world that ignored her, about being born in silence and refusing to stay there. At midnight, she stood up, walked to the mirror, and practiced her opening line once more. No tears this time. Just breathe. Just voice. The next morning, a black car parked quietly outside the school. Chibuzo stepped out, holding a letter in his hand. addressed to Zanele's mother. But inside the envelope, unknown to him, was a truth that would never reach her, because someone else already made sure it wouldn't. The school auditorium was buzzing again, but this time it felt different. People weren't whispering about Zanele anymore. They were watching her, some curious, some nervous, some quiet with guilt. She walked through the hallway with her songbook tucked under her arm, head high. The dress borrowed from her teacher was neatly folded in her bag. She didn't try to hide it anymore. It was her armor, and she'd earned it. When she entered the auditorium, the other contestants turned their head. Some went quiet. One of them, the same girl who had laughed when her dress was destroyed, looked away fast. No one dared say a word. The staff member at the check-in desk blinked when he saw her. "You're back?" Zanele simply nodded. "Yes." He cleared his throat and handed her the final lineup card. She looked at it. Her name was at the top now, first to perform. She nodded again and walked backstage. In the corner, her teacher waited, holding the earrings she had promised. "You ready?" Zanele took them, clipping them on slowly. "More than ever." Her teacher touched her shoulder. "You're not here to prove anything, Zanele. You're here to sing your truth. That's more than enough." Zanele smiled faintly. "Truth is all I have." Behind the curtain, the crowd gathered. Parents, students, judges. Chibuzo sat in the front row. He looked tired, worn, but alert. In his hand, folded in his jacket pocket, was the letter he had written the night before. An apology to Adisa, the letter he had planned to deliver in silence. He didn't know that his wife had already found it and burned the original. The one he held now was a rewritten copy, rushed and missing everything real. The music host walked onto the stage and tapped the mic. "Welcome, everyone. It's time for our final performances. First up, Zanele Okoro." Applause began. Backstage, Zanele tightened her grip on the mic. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, then stepped out into the light. The crowd went quiet. Chibuzo leaned forward, heart pounding again like it had during the last round. She took her position, adjusted the mic, looked out into the crowd, not searching for approval this time, just breathing. She whispered to herself, "You don't need to see me, just hear me." The pianist nodded from the side. Her cue began. A soft chord filled the room, her lips parted, and her voice began. But this time, her song wasn't just about pain, it was about rising from it. And in the very first line, she added something new, a name. Chibuzo sat frozen in his seat as Zanele's voice filled the hall again. But this time, something was different. She had changed the opening line. "For the man whose name I never carried, but whose silence I wore like a second skin." The words hit Chibuzo like a blow to the chest. He looked down, his fingers curled around the apology letter in his pocket. It felt too thin now, too late, too weak for the voice standing on that stage. After the performance, the audience clapped hard, louder than before. Zanele didn't bow, she didn't smile. She just walked off the stage, calm and steady, as if her voice had carried something heavy off her shoulders and left it behind. Chibuzo stood up and walked quickly toward the judge's exit. Outside in a hallway, he took out his phone. "Call the school. I need a private moment with Zanele Okoro. No cameras, no press." But when he reached the staff desk, a security guard stepped in front of him. "Sorry, sir. The contestant has requested no interruptions before results are announced." Chibuzo nodded slowly, not wanting to push. He turned to leave, but ran into a woman, his wife. She wasn't supposed to be there. "I told you to stay away from this," he said, voice low. She smiled tightly. "And let you throw away everything for her? She's my daughter. Not legally, not publicly, just a mistake you left behind. Remember?" Chibuzo's voice hardened. "She's not a mistake. She's the only thing I regret leaving." His wife stepped closer. "You don't understand what you're doing. If this goes public, your brand is over. Your deals, your face, your music. Gone." "I don't care." "Then maybe she should care," she snapped. "Because if you try to help her now, I'll ruin her before anyone even knows her name." Chibuzo's breath caught. He knew she meant it. He looked at her one last time, then walked away, his hand brushing over the apology letter still in his pocket. He had written it in shame, then rewritten it in fear. But now it felt useless. The words were empty if his actions stayed small. Backstage, Zanele sat quietly on a bench, staring at the floor. Her teacher came over, kneeling in front of her. "How do you feel?" Zanele shook her head. "I don't know. Like I left something on that stage." "You left more than something," the teacher said. "You left everything." Zanele looked up. "Then I hope it was enough." Far behind the curtains, Chibuzo stood watching from a gap, his face filled with something close to desperation. He whispered, "She doesn't need me, but I owe her the truth." The auditorium dimmed once again. It was time for the final round. The best performers would return to the stage one last time for the final decision. Zanele was one of them. She waited in the shadows backstage, her hands folded together, her heart beating steady but deep. Not fast, not scared, just ready. The stage manager whispered, "You're up again, Zanele." Final round. One more song. She stepped forward slowly, her eyes locked ahead. She wasn't walking toward a microphone. She was walking toward a moment she had waited her whole life for, even if she hadn't known it. The crowd was silent. No laughter, no whispers, just watching. She stood before the mic and looked out, not at anyone in particular this time. Not at her enemies, not even at Chibuzo. She looked into the space between the rows, into the quiet. Then she began. No music this time, only her voice, a cappella. The words were not rehearsed. They were not written in her notebook. They were born that second. They rose from somewhere deep, below the bones, past the memory. They tried to tell me I was nothing. They tried to tell me silence was safer. But I learned that silence has an echo, and mine was waiting. The audience leaned in. I used to wish someone would come save me. Then I realized I could sing myself out. No name, no shield, just truth. Her voice rose, not in volume, but in power. Each word was a hammer on the wall that once trapped her. Backstage, her teacher covered her mouth with her hand, eyes wet. Chibuzo sat motionless, tears lining the bottom of his eyes. He had heard many voices in his life, famous ones, trained ones, rich ones, but none had ever made him feel like this. He was not listening to a contestant. He was listening to the daughter he walked away from, teaching the world how to stay standing. Zanele's final lines trembled, not from weakness, but from strength being released at last. You don't have to be named to matter. You don't have to be wanted to rise. You just need to sing like the world finally has ears. Silence, a pause, then a wave of claps, standing ovation, not just applause, but respect. The kind you don't buy, the kind you bleed for. Zanele stood for a moment longer, then gave a small bow. Not for the crowd, for her mother. Then turned and walked away. As she left the stage, Chibuzo stood too, finally ready to speak. But at that same moment, a voice in his earpiece came through. "She's gone. Her mother. She didn't make it." Chibuzo stood still, frozen, as the words repeated in his ear. "She's gone. Her mother passed away a few minutes ago." His hands fell to his sides. The clapping around him faded into a distant echo. The crowd stood, cheering Zanele's name, but he didn't hear it anymore. All he could hear was silence. The same silence he had once left Adisa in. The same silence Zanele had grown up with, and now it had returned, permanent. Backstage, Zanele sat down on the bench, still catching her breath when the school principal rushed in. He knelt beside her, breathing heavy. "Zanele, there's something you need to know." Her teacher's eyes widened, already sensing it. "What is it?" Zanele asked, confused by the sudden panic. The principal hesitated. "It's your mother. The hospital just called." Time paused. Zanele didn't speak. Her eyes searched the room for an answer no one had the courage to say. "She's gone," he said softly. Her hands went limp. Her shoulders dropped. She didn't cry, not right away. She just stared, straight ahead, as if her soul had been called away before her tears even had a chance. The teacher rushed to her side. "Zanele, look at me, I'm here." But Zanele didn't respond. At the same time, Chibuzo made his way backstage, pushing past officials and ignoring whispers. He reached the doorway and saw her sitting there, hollow, still, the strongest girl he'd ever seen, looking like the smallest. He stepped forward. The teacher noticed him first. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice sharp. "I need to speak to her," he said, his voice cracking. "Please." He moved closer. Zanele slowly turned her head. Their eyes met again. This time there was no mystery left. Just two people standing at the edge of something broken. "I'm sorry," Chibuso whispered. "I wanted to help. I paid for her treatment. I wrote to her. I came late, but I came." Zanele stared at him. "And now she's gone," she said, before she could see you say a single word. Chibuso swallowed hard. "I was scared." "I wasn't," Zanele said coldly. "I stood up there with nothing. No name, no father, just a song." He knelt before her, breaking down. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know, I see you now." She looked down at him, quiet for a long time, then said, "You don't get to see me now. You had years, she had nothing, and you gave her less." Before he could respond, the host stepped into the hallway and shouted, "Everyone back in position. The winner is about to be announced." The backstage hallway was suddenly full again. Voices, footsteps, organizers rushing around, all moving fast toward the final moment. But Zanele didn't move. She sat still on the wooden bench, her hands in her lap, her songbook resting beside her. The cheers and noise from the auditorium couldn't reach the place she had fallen into. Not after the call, not after that moment. Her teacher crouched down next to her. "Do you want to leave? I'll take you home right now. You don't have to stay for any of this." Zanele shook her head slowly. "Where would I go?" Her voice was flat, not empty, just heavy, like it had carried too much too fast. "She always wanted to hear me sing," she said, almost to herself. "But she died with silence in her ears." "No," the teacher said softly. "She died with your voice in her heart. You gave her peace. She just didn't need anything more after that." Zanele didn't answer. She looked down at her hands. "They keep asking who my father is," she said. "Some kids even guessed. I used to wish I knew. I used to think if I had a father, life would be easier." Her teacher stayed quiet, letting her speak. "But now I know something else. He existed. He saw me. And he still stayed quiet." A pause. "I'm done needing him." She stood up slowly, her legs still a little weak. The teacher held her arm for support. "You don't have to face him again." "I'm not scared of him," Zanele said. "He's scared of me." A pause. "Because I became something without him." She walked slowly toward the wings of the stage where the contestants were being lined up. Some were pacing, some were adjusting makeup, but all of them were nervous. Not Zanele. She didn't care about the prize anymore. She'd already lost the only thing she was really fighting for. But she still stood tall, because her mother would have wanted her to. The host took the mic on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, our final moment. The winner of this year's talent show, chosen not only by the judges, but now also by public vote." Zanele's breath slowed. She wasn't hoping. She was just listening. "Please welcome our first place winner." A pause. Long, deliberate. A hush fell across the room. A name was called, but not hers. The room exploded with applause. Confetti shot into the air. A spotlight spun across the stage and landed on a girl in a sparkling silver dress. Nia, one of the wealthiest and most confident students in school. She gasped with fake surprise, then ran forward, hugging the host and posing for pictures before the flashbulbs even started. Backstage, Zanele stood quietly, not blinking. She didn't flinch, didn't speak. Around her, the other contestants whispered, "Wow, she still didn't win? I thought Zanele had it." Nia's dad's company sponsored the event anyway. The teacher stepped beside her, trying to hide her anger. "That wasn't a win. That was a business decision." Zanele didn't respond. She watched the stage with calm eyes. Nia waved to the crowd, then took the mic, fake humility dripping from her voice. "This award means so much to me. But more than that, I want to say thank you to all the contestants, especially Zanele. Your performance touched so many of us." She smiled toward Zanele like it was charity. Zanele nodded once. That was it. Not a tear, not a breakdown. She had already lost the only thing she truly couldn't win back, her mother. Everything else, it didn't matter now. As the audience started leaving and organizers scrambled to set up press interviews, Zanele walked down the side of the stage quietly. Behind the curtain, Chibuzo stood waiting. When he saw her, he stepped forward, hands trembling slightly. "I'm sorry you didn't win," he said softly. She looked up at him. "I did win," she said. He looked confused. She pointed to her chest. "Here." He didn't know what to say. "I saw your name in my mother's notebook when I was a child," Zanele continued. "And I used to make up stories in my head, that maybe you were lost, or sick, or searching for me." She smiled sadly. "But you weren't. You were just busy being someone else." Chibuzo's face dropped. "I'm not mad anymore," she said, "but I don't want your name, and I don't want your money. You had one job and you left it. My mother did your part and mine, so I don't need your voice now." He nodded, tears forming. "I understand." She turned to leave. He called out one last time, "Zanele." She paused. "You sound like her," he whispered. She didn't turn around. "I don't," she replied. She walked away into the quiet hallway as a reporter nearby asked the host, "Why didn't she win? She was everyone's favorite." The host replied under his breath, "Because she wasn't meant to." Zanele stepped out of the auditorium into the cool evening air. The noise of the crowd faded behind her. Her dress, her earrings, her songbook, they all felt distant now. She walked fast, then faster. Then she started running. She didn't wait for a ride. She didn't answer her teacher's call behind her. She just ran, down the street, across 2 blocks, toward the small hospital at the corner of District 14. By the time she arrived, her legs were shaking. Her lungs burned, but she pushed open the door and walked straight to the front desk. "My mother, Adisa Okoro," she said, almost gasping. The nurse behind the counter stood slowly. "Are you Zanele?" She nodded quickly. The nurse's face softened. "Come with me." They walked down a narrow hallway filled with quiet. When they reached the room, the nurse stopped. "She's not fully here anymore, but you can go in." She held on longer than we expected. She was waiting for something. Zanele stepped inside. Her mother lay on the bed, still and small, her chest rising slowly. Her eyes were half open, not focused, but she was alive. Barely. Zanele walked to her side and knelt down beside the bed. "Mama," she whispered. Adisa didn't speak, but her fingers moved, just a little. Zanele held them gently. "I sang, Mama. You would have been proud." Her mother's lips moved slightly, no words, just a sound, a whisper of breath. "I didn't win, but I was heard," Zanele continued. "And that's enough. You were right. They couldn't silence me." A single tear rolled from her mother's eye. Zanele leaned in closer. I told Chibuzo that he didn't deserve us, and I meant it." Adisa blinked once, slowly. "You never needed him, and neither did I. You gave me everything." The monitor beeped steadily in the background, each sound a reminder that time was still ticking, but almost done. Zanele took the oxygen mask gently just for a second, kissed her mother's forehead and whispered, "I'll carry you with me now, forever." She placed the songbook beside her on the bed, a symbol of her voice, a symbol of their story. Moments later, the monitor slowed. Beep, beep, beep. Flatline. Zanele didn't cry right away. She just held her mother's hand, the same way her mother had held hers through every cough, every hunger-filled night, every silence the world gave them. And finally, she let go. Behind her, quietly and unseen, Chibuzo stood just outside the door. He had arrived too late again, this time not to walk away, but to watch his chance vanish forever. A few days later, a small funeral was held in the neighborhood graveyard. Only a few people came: neighbors, 2 nurses, Zanele's teacher, and a few silent classmates who stood at a distance. No music, no speeches, just dirt and grief. Zanele wore the same dress she had performed in. It had become more than a costume. It was her armor, her truth, her voice stitched into fabric. She didn't cry in front of them, but her silence was louder than any weeping. As the grave was covered, she knelt at the edge, placed a single folded page from her songbook beside the flowers and whispered, "I'll sing the rest for you." She stood up and walked away slowly, her teacher walking beside her in silence. But waiting near the gate was Chibuzo. He looked smaller now. No suit, no assistance. Just a man with heavy eyes and an envelope in his hands. "Zanele," he said softly. She stopped a few feet away. "I came to help. Whatever you need now, money, a home, a name, it's yours." Zanele stared at him. She looked at the envelope, then back at him. "I don't want your money. You could use it. You could go to music school. You could start again." She shook her head. "I already started, the day I sang in front of the world without your name." Chibuzo's hands dropped. "I was scared back then," he said, "of being a father, of giving up my future. So I ran." "You didn't run," she corrected. "You erased us." He nodded slowly. "You're right, but I've watched you now, and I've listened, and I want to fix it." "You can't," she replied. "I can try." "No," she said again, firmer this time. "You can't, because what I needed was a father who didn't hide when things got hard. What I needed was for my mother not to die thinking she was invisible." Chibuzo stepped back like her words had pushed him. "I don't hate you," Zanele said. "That would mean I still expect something from you." He looked down, unable to meet her eyes. "You wanted to help me now that I don't need you. But where were you when I did?" She turned away. "Zanele," he whispered. She paused, then said without turning back, "You're not my ending. You're just one part of my beginning." She dropped the envelope he had handed her onto the grave dirt and walked away, free, full, and louder in her silence than he had ever been with his voice. Months passed. The stage was smaller now. No spotlight, no judges. Just a circle of plastic chairs, a cracked keyboard, and a group of young children sitting cross-legged on the ground, watching with wide eyes. At the front of the room stood Zanele. She wore simple clothes, a loose scarf tied back, her hair messy, her shoes scuffed. But her presence, calm, grounded, felt like a lighthouse to the kids around her. She lifted her hand, smiled, and began to sing. No competition, no clapping, just a story, soft and warm. A song about a girl who used to sing to her sick mother. A song about walking through silence and turning it into sound. The children listened like it was magic. Behind her, the banner on the wall read, "Voice of the Voiceless, free music for underprivileged youth." This wasn't a charity. It wasn't a rescue mission. It was hers. Zanele had started it 3 weeks after her mother passed, with a small donation from her teacher, with old instruments from a retired music director, and with nothing else but the sound in her chest that never stopped asking to be heard. After the session, one of the little girls raised her hand. "Did you ever meet your dad?" Zanele smiled gently. "I did. What happened?" Zanele walked to the window and looked out at the street below. "He came too late, but it's okay." "Why?" the girl asked. Zanele turned, her eyes soft. "Because I wasn't waiting for him anymore." Later that day, Zanele visited her mother's grave alone. She placed a new flower, fresh and soft, then sat on the grass beside the stone. "I sing for them now, Mama," she whispered. "The ones like me, like us. You gave me a voice. I'll make sure it keeps moving." From a quiet distance, someone watched. Chibuzo stood near the road, hidden behind a parked van, not daring to approach. He didn't bring flowers. He didn't carry letters, just his presence. He watched Zanele for a long while, his face wet, then slowly turned and walked away. He never tried to speak again, and Zanele never asked him to, because some silences are better kept whole. She stood up, brushed the grass off her clothes, and walked away from the grave, with her songbook tucked under her arm. A new melody forming in her mind, not from grief, not from rage, but from freedom. Some stories begin in silence, but they don't have to stay there. Mine didn't.